This is the Crime Cafe, your podcasting source of great crime, suspense, and thriller writing. I'm your host, Debbi Mack. Before I bring on my guest, I'll just remind you that the Crime Cafe has 2 ebooks for sale, the 9-book box set and the short story anthology. You can find the buy links for both on my website, debbimack.com, DEBBIMACK.com, under the Crime Cafe link. You can also get a free copy of either book if you become a Patreon supporter of the podcast at the $10 monthly level. You'll get that and much more if you support the podcast on Patreon, along with our eternal gratitude for doing so. So, it's my pleasure to introduce my guest for this episode, the author of multiple short stories of the noir persuasion, Gareth Spark. Hey, Gareth,
Thank you.
it is great to have you on, and I'm so glad that we were finally able to work out our technical difficulties.
It's great to be here. Thank you for having me.
Well, it's a real pleasure. Am I correct in saying that you primarily or exclusively write short stories?
Pretty much, yes. I would say that's correct.
And what led you down that particular career path in terms of writing?
Well, when I left school when I was a teenager, I was in a band, and I used to write the lyrics for the songs. And it turned out that the lyrics were better than the songs, and the songs turned into poems, and the poems turned into stories. And I just started reading more and more literature, and yeah, I just found that the stories I was writing were far better than the songs I was writing.
You were writing the songs as well?
Yeah, but they were pretty terrible songs.
It's funny because I used to do the lyrics for a musician who would write the songs. This was way back
Right.
in high school, and we lost touch with each other, unfortunately. But yeah, those were the days. I tell you, I think
Oh man.
I've always been the word person, although I am also a musician, actually.
Likewise,
Uh huh.
likewise.
Yeah, I don't think I could make a living at it at this point, but um, in
Yeah,
any case.
I'm not pretty enough to the front person for a band, but we used to. I used to write the songs and stuff. Pretty much the chords were like just G, C, and D. But and eventually people in this town figured it out that like these guys suck, but the words are pretty good.
And where are you living?
In Whitby, North Yorkshire, which is like in the. It's not the far north of England, but it's pretty far north. It's if you ever read Dracula, the novel, it's
I
where
have not read
Dracula
it.
first arrives in England. So he first arrives in England in Whitby, and he says, your bands suck. Don't write no more songs. Um, so that's where I'm at the moment in Whitby.
You do have something of a Scottish tilt to your accent, I think.
It's a very peculiar accent around there. I must admit, it's not quite English. It's not quite Scottish. It's very in between. We're in the borders here. It's a border accent, I guess.
Well, that's cool. I kind of like that.
Yeah.
Um, I'm sort of on the border myself. Maryland
Oh,
is actually a border state. It
oh,
was a
yeah.
border state during the Civil War, so
Right.
it's somewhat odd in that respect. I've always thought it is.
No, no, that's fascinating. I'm fascinated by that. I'm quite interested in the history of the Civil War in America.
Yeah, it's
Um,
something.
yeah, yeah, absolutely,
Yeah.
absolutely.
Let me see. Have you ever considered writing a novel?
I, I have. I'm currently finishing a novel. I'm editing one at the moment. It's kind of a generational thing set in the town that I grew up in, and it's yeah, we'll see if anybody will put up with it and buy it. But I'm editing it at the moment, so I'm fingers crossed. People will read it and say, "Do you know what? This guy is the greatest thing in English literature let's give it a 1 million quid, but probably not. But
We can always hope.
hey, we can always hope. That's my philosophy.
Well,
Well,
I've been reading Snake Farm, and I just have to say I'm really enjoying it. It seems like there are recurring characters in the different stories. Is that
yes, that's
uh,
quite right.
that was
That's quite
intentional? I
right.
assume. Yeah.
It is. Yes, yes, it is. Um, it's intentional because I read Crimes in Southern Indiana by Frank Bill, and I saw. I don't know if you've read this book, but it's a fantastic noir uh, American crime novel in stories by this guy. He's a terrific writer, and I read this book and I thought, well, why can't we have a similar story in the north of England, which has this border sort of background and this sort of like these characters and so Frank Bill was an immense influence on me for that book and obviously at the time I was working the warehouse as well as is Frank Bill famously so yeah, it's kind of like the first step towards a novel I guess.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. Yeah, it felt like
Yeah,
it. It felt like you were trying to kind of novelize a collection of short stories in a sense,
I,
have a
exactly.
whole thematic thing with the characters. And I also felt like that the setting could be just as easily Appalachia or out in
Oh my, yeah, my God, I'm
out
so glad you said that
west,
because
or
I've
but
always,
Appalachia in particular,
yeah,
the East Coast mountain areas.
yes, yes,
Yeah,
always felt that, Debbie. I've always felt that this um, region where I live in England is kind of like a forgotten sort of kind of Rust Belt kind of area, and it has these people who are sort of creating a life for themselves, and yeah, you've absolutely hit it on the head. That's the kind of vibe that I was trying to capture in these stories. Definitely, definitely.
well, you do it very well.
Well,
I have
thank
to
you.
say, I'm
I
enjoying the
appreciate it.
stories. When I sit down to start to read one, I can't put it down till I'm done with that story. That's the way the effect it has on me. So
I appreciate that. Thank you very much. I appreciate the kind words.
that's not even like idle praise. I really mean it. Uh, I keep hearing the term Brit Grit, and I see it a lot on Paul Brazil's blog.
Yes, yes.
Tell us what Brit Grit is.
So I think, as I said in my sort of guest blog, I guess that Grit is a sort of a noir sort of British crime thriller genre, which is I, I guess it avoids the kind of like traditional British. So you've got the Cockney gangsters who are like, I'm going to shoot you in the bloody face, blue the bloody hell, are you kidding me, And then you've got the Miss Marple, yes, so let's all meet in the drawing room, and I shall call you. Grit sort of like is the other side of that. It's like the kind of like the true down to the earth, gritty kind of noirish sort of voice, which Paul Brazil brilliantly encapsulates. Paul Heatley, Ben Jones, all these guys, the pretty much the knit and knuckle guys, knit and knuckle, um, which is now I think close to the bone. Is a website that publishes all this kind of like fiction. He was the place that first published my short stories. So it's kind of a noirish, a very Hemingway-esque kind of fiction that exists to describe these kind of lives, these kind of like
Down and out.
low, exactly, these kind of low rent British lives, this kind of like crime, this kind of, and it, you know what? It's a wonderful thing. I think I said in my piece that it goes right back to, in my opinion, Wuthering Heights with Heathcliff vanishing and living this weird sort of like hidden life for so
Hmm.
long, you know, under the cover. And it's a very British kind of reaction to um,
To the
maybe the
drawing
austerity.
room. Yeah,
Exactly. It's a class thing, Debbie. At the end,
exactly.
it's a class thing, and this is the lower class, the working class, kicking against the constraints. Yeah. So
Of
that's
British
what I
literature. Yeah.
exactly because I guess in America you get this idea of British culture and British literature as being some kind of like high cultural thing. You know, this sort of like a lords and ladies kind of like what's the word? Downing? What is it? Downing Castle or
Downing
whatever the hell
Street.
it is.
Down. I'm
Yeah,
not
yeah.
sure.
Um,
Upstairs,
um,
downstairs. I don't know.
what's the thing
Father
with the
Dowling.
castle? Yeah. Yeah,
You
that kind of
know,
thing.
let's
Whereas
all
in
have
reality,
high tea and talk about the murder.
quite so. Whereas exactly in reality, it's much more nitty gritty. It's much more down to earth, and I think this
Yeah.
is the kind of thing that we were trying to bring around with Grit, and definitely Paul Brazil, Paul Heatley, Ben Jones, myself, Chris Leake, all these guys. We were trying to bring movement around, and whether we didn't, who knows? But we were trying to get the murder mystery out of the drawing room with Miss Marple and into the streets.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I think Raymond Chandler was doing the same thing here in the States. He was
Yes,
reacting against that. And actually, he went to school in England. So a lot
really?
of it,
Hell,
yes. Yeah. He grew up for a time in England. So,
I didn't know that.
yeah, it's very interesting. So, yeah, I tend to think of like people like James and M. Cain here,
Yes,
the noir and some, the more modern ones like Megan Abbott or Krista Faust, who get down into the
yes, Crystal
into
House.
the,
Yeah,
oh, for sure. I mean, so we have kind of our American equivalents here, and it's
yeah.
really cool. And just from watching movies, I really have never thought of Britain as a place where it's all hoity-toity. If you've ever seen the movie like Black Friday, for instance,
Yes,
yeah,
yeah.
I just thought Bob Hoskins and Helen Mirren were brilliant in that, and it's just
Oh, absolutely. Yeah.
it's a
Um, the Michael Caine one. You know the oh, what's the one where he comes up to Newcastle?
oh, I love that one. Get Carter.
Dick Hadder.
Oh, I
Yeah,
love that one. Oh my
yeah,
god.
big man. But yeah, I shame. I did it for a living. You know,
Oh, he's great in that movie.
fantastic. But that's the kind of like the thing that I'm trying to bring back into my own literature, I guess, and the literature around here, which is this sort of like not lower class, but this kind of like working class sort of like vibe into short stories, into fiction, you know, because it has been missing historically, it has been missing, uh, you know, in definitely in English literature. I mean, obviously, you guys have got Kane, you've got Benjamin Whitmer, you've got Frank Bill, you've got all these terrific writers. Donald J. Pollock. I mean, Donald J. Pollock is a fantastic writer, one of my absolute heroes.
Oh my
Um,
gosh. I should be
yeah,
taking
no, no.
notes.
Oh, Donald J. Pollock he's a terrific writer. The Devil all the time. Not only is that a title I wish I'd stolen,
Ken
but
Bruin? Ken
it's a
Bruin? Do you like Ken
Yeah,
Burns?
yeah, absolutely. Yeah, yeah,
And
yeah. I mean,
oh gosh, his name's Stuart. Why can't I think of his last name? Ah, from Northern Ireland. Stuart. I'm an idiot. I can't think of it.
honestly, I would say you put me on the spot and ask me to name people. I'm like, whoa, I can't remember the name. I swear to God.
Stuart
Um,
Neville. Stuart Neville.
you would never, yeah, yeah,
Stuart Neville writes has written
yeah.
some wonderful books that I absolutely love. So now that I've made an idiot of myself,
No, 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 not at all. Allow me to do that in this broadcast.
um, let's see. I think we've covered your favorite authors. Where can readers find your work?
I guess
What's the best place?
you can obviously find my novel Marwick's Reckoning on the Kindle. My collection of short stories Snake Farm is also on Kindle to download. However, if you go onto the website of toasttothebone.com, which is near to the knuckle, as it used to be called, um, there's a fair few stories of mine on there that haven't been published that you can download. Otherwise, you can get these guys on on Kindle. Those are my only two books, so I'm boasting about them a little bit. Yes, so no Kindle, close to the bone, or just search my name in Kindle. I used to be a member of a writing collective called Zelma Pulp,
What was the name of
which
the What was the name of the committee?
it it was called Zelma Pulp, and a member was we had Chris Leak as a member, and we had Brian Panowich, who did like Lions, and he did what was the name of his novel? Clones. He did another novel. They're kind of like they're fairly well respected novels, and I had the privilege of being having a character named after myself in one of those, which stands as one of the most brilliant things that has ever happened to me. What the hell did they call it? Like Lions, by Brian Panowich. It's something I'm saying.
The sound is coming out slightly garbled from your end, but hopefully people can hear you.
That's probably my accent, which is consistently slightly garbled. In fact, I believe it says under occupation in my passport, slightly garbled.
That could be the state of my brain on any given day. Um,
Likewise.
well, let's see. You're working on a novel, and I guess the other question I wanted to ask you is when are you going to get a website or blog?
Oh, it's literally on my to-do list, honestly, because I'm not very tech savvy. I live here in the boondocks of England, and it's literally like nothing going on. So it's something that's on my to-do list. I desperately need a blog and website just so I can get stuff out there, I guess. Um, but I have you to thank for that.
Well, I will tell you, get a blog or a website. That's that's like should be number one on your to-do list
Absolutely, absolutely.
after writing, of
Absolutely.
course. But
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, sure. I mean, I'm going to FantasyCon next month. It's a festival I go to every year. It's more like horror writers and things like that.
mm-hmm.
Uh, the first year I went. This movie, The Ritual. Have you seen this movie?
I have not seen that.
It's like a horror movie. these guys are backpacking in Sweden, I think, and they get lost and there's like monsters and all sorts of things. Me and the guy who wrote that climbed up to a local castle, the ruins of this castle, and we climbed up there. And I was like, "Yeah, I've written a few books and stuff like this." He says, "Well, I've written this one called The Ritual." I was like, "Well, we'll see whose book gets first." And it turns out, obviously, his book has been published to wide acclaim and turned into a Hollywood movie. And my book is like, yeah.
Well,
It's in local books if anyone's interested.
you just need to feel proud that you wrote it and be
AM
happy
product.
if you can reach
Honestly,
readers. That to me, that's
yeah,
what really matters. But in any case, is there anything you'd like to add before we finish up?
um, I would like to add that to people out there who are writing, finish what you've written because you will have an audience. There are people out there who are dying to hear from you, who want to hear what you have to say. So finish it, publish it, send it out, and you will have an audience.
Great advice. I agree with you 100%. And
And
yes, go ahead.
and don't ever wear a hat with this many holes in it.
Well, on
Otherwise,
that, yeah.
otherwise you'll
Otherwise, what?
go and
Oh, good. Excellent. Well,
and
all I
thank you
can
for
say
everything.
is I'm so glad we were able to talk, garbled or not. And I'm glad we were able to get the technical problems mostly filled out, fixed, mostly straightened out. I don't, my mouth isn't working today. I don't know why. But once again, I'd like to thank Gareth for being here. And
Thank you, David.
it was my pleasure too. And uh,
Honestly,
And once again, I'll remind you that the Crime Cafe box set and anthology are available for sale on my website, debbimack.com. Also, along with that, we have a Patreon page with lots of goodies for our supporters. And if you're listening to this on iTunes, please leave a review. It really helps a lot. So, with that, I'll just say thanks for listening, take care, and I'll see you in 2 weeks.